the Sony ZV-1F versus the Sony ZV-1. Which one should you buy? Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much once again joining me for tea time. I got my little special cup here. I have some other cups I want to bring out for the holidays. I love Samhain or Halloween or All Hallows Eve. It's one of my favorite holidays. I hope you're joining me with your cup of tea, hanging out, talking tech, talking photo, talking video. Today is a photo video day, I guess you would call it. We're talking about a camera, the Sony ZV-1F. Before we get into it, I want to say that if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks as of yet, go check them out. Go over to JCristina.com/books. Once again, JCristina.com/books. There's something there for everyone, and they're free. Go grab one. Now, just for reference, right now we're shooting on a Sony ZV-1, and this is what it looks like. It's not bad. It is a pretty good camera. It's very small and compact. Do I have 5D Mark IVs and 1Ds and all kinds of other cameras? Over on this side, we have a Canon EOS R. Why do I use it like this? Because it's so small, compact, and just does the job. Sometimes it's not about having the absolute best camera. It's about getting a camera that's right for the specific job. And being in a tighter space, having something really small and compact is really good. And also having this camera being very light, the way it's connected to the table here, is a benefit also. So anyways, I'm going to go over some comparisons between the Sony ZV-1F versus the Sony ZV-1, and hopefully this will help you decide which camera is right for you. Now, the Sony ZV-1 that we're using here is an older camera. It's a few years old now, and at the time of introduction, it was about $798, I believe. I got it cheaper than that. I got a really good deal. But the introduction of this camera, as it is introduced, will be $498. So it is definitely a big difference between the two. You can find a ZV-1 now at about $698 US. So they're about $200 difference if you were to pick them up right this moment. And you can pre-order, I believe, the ZV-1F as of now. And I'll put a link down below on where you can go. Anyways, the similarities, I believe, start with the sensor. All right, it's the exact same 1-inch, 20-megapixel CMOS sensor. Nothing changed there. Also, both cameras have a fully articulating back panel. The panel is different. I'll get into that in just a second. Now, the battery is the same. So if you have a ZV-1 and you end up with a ZV-1F, you're going to use the same battery. It is an NP-BX1. Now, when it comes to video, they are both the same. They both will shoot 4K 30p and HD at 120p. So that's good because a lot of people like to shoot slow motion, and they both have it at 120p. There's people out there that want 240p or 480p. Well, you don't have it. Look elsewhere, I should say. Well, all the buttons on these cameras are the same, so you're not going to have a hard time finding anything. And I personally like the button placement on this Sony ZV-1. It is good enough for what we're doing with it. Once again, it is a small camera. I put a cage on mine because I like it better because you have a little bit more grip to it. So I would recommend a cage on either one of these cameras, especially if you have big mitts like I do. Now, the microphones on the cameras are identical. So while the audio is usable, I would use it for scratch audio. I personally would recommend getting a wireless setup or possibly a wired shotgun mic, like a mini shotgun mic that you can attach to the top of either one of these cameras. Now, both of them have showcase mode. And if you don't know what that is, basically it allows you to hold something up and the camera will lock on it. Now, showcase mode is not on right now, and you can see that it's still locked up on my eyes, even though this mug is closer to the camera. Well, when you put it on showcase mode, it'll notice that this is closer and it'll focus on this. So that's really cool if you're like a vlogger and you want to show people stuff. How many times people are like, you know, I do it sometimes myself. Okay, let me hide my eyes and show you the mug because Sony will snap to those eyes and not let them go, which is a benefit. There's cameras out there that are constantly pulsing. They don't know where they're shooting. Panasonic. I don't want to get into that, but yeah, there are some cameras out there that are just horrific when it comes to being able to hold focus and track eyes, where Sony is definitely not that camera or that system. Now, the differences between the two cameras, some of these differences will most likely help you determine which camera you would like to buy, because there's a lot of similarities. Where things differ is with the weight. The ZV-1 is slightly smaller, but it is heavier, about 50 grams heavier. Now, if 50 grams is a lot in your hands, you probably need to lift some weights. But either way, let's just call it even. The ZV-1F is slightly lighter, but it really doesn't make too much of a difference. Now, the ZV-1F does have the newest, let's say, USB-C for charging as well as image and video transport. That is really good in my personal opinion, because the ZV-1 that we're using right now, which is connected to the computer through the regular standard USB, is a little bit slow downloading gigs and gigs and gigs of files, because these files get large, especially when you do, let's say, a 30-minute vlog or something. You're looking at probably like 10, 15 gigabytes of data, sometimes more. Depends on how much is going on. So I do like that it does have the USB-C port on it, so you get that quicker data rate. As far as the charging is the charging. You could always use that cable to charge the camera, but you can also just pull the battery out and charge it externally. It doesn't really make a difference. Now, the ZV-1F does have the latest Sony menu system. Some people like it, some people don't. It's a similar menu system as a Sony FX3, for example. Now, in studio, where I do some of the episodic TV stuff that I do, we've moved from EVA 1s, Panasonic EVA 1s, to the Sony FX3, FX6, and FX9. Why is that? Back to the whole autofocus, where it can't lock up and whatnot. So we can actually shoot live interviews and have the faith in the Sony to lock in on the talent or the host's eyes and not have to worry about it. You can zoom in, zoom out. It will stay sticky on those eyes. Whereas the Panasonic, the EVA 1s, you'd have to shoot a manual and just kind of pull your own focus because they were horrendous. Sony definitely has that eye tracking in spades over all companies. I would say they're equally as good, sometimes even better than Canon. And Canon with their dual pixel AF has been so good for so many years. I mean, Sony has come a really long way. They're doing amazing when it comes to eye tracking. Now, like I said before, the ZV-1 came out at $798, which now you can probably pick up at about $698 US. The ZV-1F is going to debut at $498. That's pretty damn cheap. So in a couple of years, this camera is probably going to be $398 or somewhere right around there. So it is definitely a cheaper camera. Now, when it comes to photos, the ZV-1 will allow you to capture JPEGs as well as RAW images, whereas the ZV-1F will only allow for JPEGs, no RAW. Both of these units do come with active in-body image stabilization, or IBIS. The ZV-1 does crop in from 24 millimeters up to about 29, 30 millimeters. Whereas the ZV-1F, starting out at 20 millimeters, once again 4 millimeters wider than the ZV-1, will crop into about 25 millimeters. Now, the crop factor is identical, so it just depends on that base millimeter or the widest millimeter of that lens. So figure 25 millimeters is where you're going to be at if you are going to shoot image stabilized. Now, the ZV-1 has a max ISO of 12,800, whereas the new camera, the ZV-1F, is sitting at about 6,400, half of the ISO. Now, the bottom line here with both of these cameras, they have the identical sensors, so it really doesn't make too much of a difference. I wouldn't shoot either of these cameras above, let's call it 1250 ISO. After that, you're going to be introducing so much artifacting and noise that in post-production it's going to be brutal to try to work it out and smooth out the mess. You don't want to do that. You want to either shoot at about 100, 200, 400 ISO, or you want to start introducing more light onto the subject or onto the area that you're going to be capturing. Also, the ZV-1 does provide ND filters, a 3-stop ND filter built into it, whereas the ZV-1F does not. But the ZV-1F does provide threads at the end of that lens, that fixed lens, so you can screw in an ND filter if you would like. So that's kind of cool. You could also put on a polarizer or whatever you would like. So I like that. Now, what is my conclusion here? All right. I'm glad you asked. If you are a content creator and you want something that's extremely lightweight that you can take with you, you don't have to worry about a lens coming in and out. You don't have to worry about attaching any lenses. It's 20 millimeters and that is it. If you want to zoom, you use your feet to zoom. Foot zoom always works great. You don't need a zoom lens. Well, at that point, I think a Sony ZV-1F is perfect. On the other hand, if you are like a hybrid shooter, well, I would have to say the ZV-1 is probably best for you. And the reason being, the ZV-1F does not allow you to shoot RAW. And if you're not shooting RAW, then you're doing yourself a disjustice when it comes to being able to edit in post-production. Because to edit a JPEG is basically useless, whereas with a RAW image, you can push and pull the image a little bit. Depends on how much dynamic range the actual camera is capturing in the first place, but you definitely have a lot more ability to get a better image by shooting RAW. So if you need to shoot RAW and you are a hybrid shooter, I'd probably recommend the ZV-1 over the ZV-1F. So I think that this is a really great camera for vloggers out there. And it's probably kind of like a replacement to an iPhone or an Android phone or something along those lines. And I think Sony basically created this camera to answer or to appease all of the people that got so upset with the ZV-1 starting out at a 24 millimeter wide angle. And when you extend that out as far as your hand can go, depending on how long your arms are, if they're ape-like, you're probably okay. But if they're not, at 24 millimeter, you're cropped in really pretty tight. And you end up like this head walking around. And vlogging, especially if you're out and about vlogging, it's not only about the subject, but it's about the scenery around the subject. Where are you, right? So if every one of your vlogs, doesn't matter if you're in a vineyard somewhere or if you're at some type of rocket launch in another location and they all look the same because you're cropped in right here, it doesn't matter, right? So what people were doing is they would put it on top of like a stick and they would put the camera further out. It's just doesn't work out as well. So that extra 4 millimeters that Sony's giving you here with the Sony ZV-1F is a lot. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is a lot. It will definitely help out. So I think that there is a place for this camera. Some people have said, why did they even bother making it? I mean, I think that we needed it. I would be even more interested if we were to see a Sony ZV-2 come out. Now, we do have the ZV-E10, which would be like a ZV-1, but with a lens that you can affix to it. But I like the ability to have a camera that doesn't have a lens. All of my cameras have lenses, right? I have tens of thousands of dollars of Canon glass. Same thing with Sony. Many of those alpha cameras are going to have lenses that you can attach to it and change them out, and that's all great. But if you just want to run and gun and capture a vlog, just having the simplicity of having a built-in lens, either zoom like this one with the ZV-1 or not, a fixed 20 millimeter, I think is exceptional. I think is great. And it makes it a lot more pocketable. You don't have to bring around lenses or anything. You stick it in your pocket, you pull it out. With the ZV-1, it'll just motor out that zoom lens. With the ZV-1F, it's just fixed, and that is it. So I think it's cool. I do. And the price, I think, is right at $498. I don't think it's too high, too low. I think for what you're getting, they priced it right. Once again, you're not getting RAW. So if you're using it for photos, I would not recommend it. But for anything, video, you can shoot S-Log in it. There's a lot of things you can do, and then color grade after the fact and make it very similar to an image that you would see in an FX3, for example. Close. So anyways, guys, I hope you found this interesting. If you have, please consider throwing the video a thumbs up. Also subscribe to the channel and click this little button over here so when I go live or when a new video comes out, you will be notified of it immediately. And If you just want to say thank you for all of my hard work, there's a little thank you button down there that YouTube gave us. Click on that, or even better, don't click on it and just become a member of the channel. That would be even better. I'd love to have you. Finally, head over to my website, JCristina.com, where you can find all the photography tools that I've invented for you and me over the years. And hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. That's it, guys. I'm out of here for another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Love you all.